Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Random Redshirt Podcast. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, whichever you celebrate. We are the Random Redshirt Podcast. I am one of the hosts, Zach, and the other host is Chris. What's up, buddy?
Hey, what's up, buddy? My dear friend Zach. It's excellent to see you again. I've been busy, like so busy this last week, so it's great to be able to sit down and talk with you. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. We are like a few days before the holidays, so we're really excited, and thank you everyone for joining us around the world and in Antarctica. I'm exhausted today, bro. Like I had all sorts of like Christmas like preparation taskers. So
Oh,
I
man.
am I am thus tired.
You had the honey-do list, huh?
Mm, yeah, we went out and we braved the Christmas shopping, and we're not
Oh,
done. Yeah, we still
yuck.
have some to do.
Yeah,
But
we went to Walmart earlier, and it was just too many people's.
oh yeah,
Way too many people's.
yeah. But we're making progress. Making progress. Tomorrow, I have a family Christmas gathering, and I'm gonna make. This is kind of cool because this flows into like what you have in your background too. But I'm gonna make from Kyle's like cookbook that
Hmm.
I'm gonna make the rose apple, blackberry pie, and then some
Ooh.
elvish bread from
Ooh.
from the
That
Dungeons and
sounds
Dragons cookbook. Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it
That
does.
sounds yummy.
So you tried some coffee, my friend.
I
Cold
did,
brew
yeah. Now,
coffee. Yeah.
now let me preface all this a couple of things here. First, by Kyle or Pop Culture Coffee. This is something that we just wanted to reach out and try because he had mentioned it and I'd seen on there. I'm also not a coffee drinker, so take that for what you will. I do not drink coffee. I'm not a fan. I've tried coffee many different ways, and I'm just not a coffee drinker. Never have been. Uh, but I was like, I want to support Kyle. I want to support his endeavor and give it a try. And plus, there are all sorts of cool pop culture stuff. You got Klingon coffee, right? Raktajino, and there's Ninja Turtles and there's Ghostbusters, all this cool stuff. So I was like, well, let me just I'll order a couple things and try it. It's not the end of the world if I don't like them. They're not that terribly expensive. And then I got a mug, so I can use the mug for drink anything out of it, right? So there've been a couple snafus with the orders, unfortunately, but they're working to remedy that. But I
Mhm.
today I got in the Leonardo Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle sugar cookie flavor cold brew can. So I tried that. And then I
Nice.
also have this other one here. Those of you listening, this is the Klingon coffee. It's a butterscotch flavored dark roast cold brew. So I don't know if it's going to be bitter or not because I've heard dark roast is kind of bitter.
Yeah.
But today I tried the Leonardo one, and I have to say, I'm not a coffee drinker, but it was pretty good actually. I actually didn't. It
Nice.
wasn't bad. It didn't feel. It really wasn't bitter. Um, it didn't taste like a sugar cookie. It just was very sweet, like a sugar cookie would be. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to try this Klingon one at some point. But it was good. I've got the rest of it in my mug in the fridge for tomorrow because it's way too late by the time of this recording to be drinking coffee,
Yeah.
or I'll be up all night. So I didn't
Well,
want to do that.
well, all of us coffee, maybe this is a start, Zach. All of us coffee drinkers around the world will convert you to more coffee drinking. Maybe we'll
But I
see.
don't
I know
want
you've
to
tried.
because I'm afraid if I start liking it, I'll drink way too much of it. And we all know if
Understand.
you drink too much coffee, that's no bueno. It's
No
got to be a
bueno
balance, right?
indeed. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of balance, and which made me think of the Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi and bonsai trees.
Yeah.
So I
You got
could,
one set in
yeah,
your background, Chris.
yeah, as do you, my friend. You have one sitting in
I
your
do.
background too. Yeah,
I do.
I couldn't believe it. So, you shared with me, the bonsai tree that your wife got, which was wonderful. And then, well, what wasn't that like even like a week and a half, couple weeks later, like my wife surprised me with a bonsai tree. This is completely by coincidence. So
Yeah.
that
She
we,
didn't know my
yeah,
wife got me one. So,
right. So this was awesome. This was cool.
yeah, it
So
really was. I don't know about you. I've wanted a bonsai tree since I was a kid, really, since I saw the Karate Kid. I thought they were really
yeah.
amazing looking trees. They felt very zen like, very calming.
Mhm.
A lot of cool things you can do with them. They're beautiful little trees, and I always wanted one ever since I was a kid. And so my wife asked me what I want for Christmas. And I was like, oh, at this point in my life, I'm like, I like giving gifts more than receiving them. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't really need anything. I don't really want anything.
Yeah.
She's like, well, I need some ideas. Give me something. I was like, so I started thinking for a little while. I was like, you know what? I've always wanted a bonsai tree. I mean, I could have gone out and gotten one myself, but I just never did it, I guess, for whatever reason. And then I found this website, again, not a paid advertisement, called, I think it's easternleaf.com. And they have all these different species of bonsai trees. And
Yeah.
I found this one, which is a juniper. This one is about, the website says about 7 to 9 years old. It's already been kind of pre-shaped, and then I've done a little bit of pruning to it myself. And I'm just kind of learning as I go. It's very, yeah, it's very calming, very zen-like. I love it. Absolutely love it. Tell us about yours.
Yeah. Well, I'm still learning. So we got it a few days ago, really. And so I've been misting it like with water every day.
Yep.
And then trying to find the right place around the house that's got enough light.
Yeah.
Um, so that's been good. And in in my hometown, like the greenhouse that we got it at has a apparently it does have like a class or a gathering of bonsai tree owners where we can talk about like caring for them. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that'll be pretty cool to be able to do. And
Yeah.
then I got to figure out what to name the bonsai tree.
Oh, you got an, I didn't even think about naming it.
Yeah, some sort of. I'm gonna meditate like on a name.
There you
What
go.
name it should be.
Maybe I'll name mine Zen.
There you go.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I read that you don't want the soil to dry out. You want to keep the soil like somewhat moist. It doesn't have to be soaking, but somewhat moist. So I've been misting mine and running a little bit of water over it each morning. And then where I'm at, it's not super warm right now. Although I guess the juniper species of bonsai can withstand temperatures down to they say about 10 degrees. So it's been chillier in the morning. It's been warming up into the 40s and 50s and almost 60 degrees here with some nice weather. So I keep
Mhm.
it in at night, and then I take it outside, put it in the sun, let it sit out most of the day, and then bring it in the evening.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, when it gets spring and summer here, I'll take it out. But that's
Yeah,
good to know
for
that
sure.
they can survive up to temperatures of 10 degrees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
10 degrees is around the coldest that I think they can go. But yeah, it's cool. It's really
Nice.
awesome. What great presents our wives gave us, huh?
I know. Yeah.
How cool is that,
There's
right?
like, yeah, it must have been, I don't know, feeling some subconscious energy that's going around. We thought,
Could
hey,
be.
this is a
We've just
good,
been married long enough. Our wives know us well enough.
yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Indeed.
Yes. So if this is your first
Yeah.
time joining us, welcome to the Random Redshirt Podcast. We're a couple of nerdy guys who like to talk about all things nerdy and geeky, Star Trek to Star Wars and everything in between. Matter of fact, Chris has one of those things on, and that is a fantastic Star Wars Christmas sweater to get him into the festive mood, I suppose.
Yeah, it is. Yes. What does it say? I'm trying to remember. Like
I
holiday
find your
cheer.
lack
Oh,
of holiday
holiday
cheer
cheer.
disturbing.
Disturbing. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. This is getting us into the Christmas spirit. And you are getting us into the festive Christmas spirit as well with your hat, my friend.
I
It
do.
looks
Yes, I have my
great. Yeah.
Washington Huskies Santa Claus hat on here. It says Washington on it with a couple hollies or whatever. So
Yeah.
go dogs for sure. And yeah, it's been really weird, Chris. You talk about working a lot. I've been working so much and I've been so busy and so exhausted. I don't know what it is this year. I mean, Christmas at the time of this recording, Christmas is only what 4 days away.
Yeah.
It's just wild to think about. I don't know. I haven't been a Grinch or anything like that, but I just feel like this Christmas it's been the least festive, it's felt the least like Christmas in so long because I've been so focused on work and I had a work trip and I mean all this stuff going on that I haven't really had any time to
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the holiday season at all. I haven't even watched National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, which is it's Natalia season right now. I haven't had a chance to watch it. And so I've only got a couple days left. I got to watch that movie.
Maybe
Tradition
Christmas Eve
here.
you can watch it. I do want to watch it as well. I have not had a chance to watch it. Like we were trading messages earlier, like you and I really feel like it felt like October 31 was yesterday, literally
Yeah,
yesterday. And you and I were together in Chicago, and it feels like literally yesterday, but that was in October.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. I mean, like both of our we're so busy in our professional lives, things just like go like in a blur, and it can
It's
consume us pretty easy.
yeah, it takes up all your mind space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just haven't had the mind space for Christmas this year. I mean, I thankfully I've gotten all but like one gift from my wife, and then but I barely got that. I was like, oh crap, I'm only a few days away from from Christmas.
Yeah,
I got to finish. You know what I mean? Like I just things just have not clicked. The normal stuff as you're prepping for this time of year just has not clicked, and so it's been really rough in that regard.
yeah,
Um, first world problems, of course, but yeah, it just hasn't. Something hasn't. It's been off, I guess. I don't know why, but it has, and I think that's just that consuming work that's
mm-hmm.
just completely enveloped my brain. I have no time for anything else to think about. So it's nice that we're getting on here because maybe it's a good stress reliever that we're doing this
Is it?
episode. And I'm glad we're doing this because if I don't know, was it at this point, I don't know, maybe it's months ago
Hmm.
now, but a few weeks ago, within the last month or so, we celebrated an anniversary in Star Trek. That was for I think it was at the 35th anniversary of Generations or something like that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Or maybe it was the 30th. Yeah, it was the 30th anniversary because it came out in 94, right? So it would have been the 30th
yeah.
anniversary this year.
Wow. And I recently watched Generations again. Um, okay, it took me like
Same.
two times, two like showings, 2 nights. I think I just spread it out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's fresh in my mind. I'm glad I got to rewatch it. It's good.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you're watching or listening to us, thank you. Be sure to go into Facebook and Instagram, check us out there, and Threads. We're on that now. We've been on that now for not
Hmm.
crazy amount of time, somewhat recently, as well as YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms. You can find us all over there. But this is something that you wanted to discuss, Chris, and I'm glad we're doing it at this particular moment because it gets a chance maybe for some of us, for us to get some of our, I don't know, our stress and our frustrations off our chest, and we're going to direct it at Star Trek Generations. This is our
Yeah.
what we're calling our Star Trek Generations rant, or a rant about Star Trek Generations.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to discuss here. A lot we're going to unpack on this episode.
Yeah. So if you have not watched Star Trek Generations from 1994, apologies, we'll probably be spoiling it quite a bit, but that's okay.
You've had
Um,
30 years, folks. It's okay.
yeah, but you can watch it after this one. You coincidentally, Zach, I had been I'm not through it yet, but I had been listening to on audiobooks the William Shatner book. I think it's called The Return.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm maybe a third or halfway to it, because in a way that's kind of related. I mean, it's totally related to this topic that we're talking about, Star Trek Generations. So
Yep.
looking forward to finishing that audiobook. It's pretty cool. I mean, he narrates it himself.
Oh, even
So
better.
yeah, so it's neat. It's neat to listen to it on audio for sure. I was looking for the hard copy book, but I couldn't find it in our library, so I went to the Audible.
There you go.
Yeah,
Nothing wrong with that,
yeah,
especially when it's narrated by the author. In this case, William Shatner makes it even better, I would think, right?
yeah. Absolutely, it makes it better. That's pretty cool. He does.
Yeah.
I mean, he plays Kirk, he plays Picard, he plays Riker. He's doing all the various voices.
That'd be odd where, you know, Picard number one, and it sounds like Shatner saying it. That'd be a little strange.
It does. Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. Yeah.
So
Awesome, bro. Yeah.
let's jump into this. You know, Star Trek Generations has had controversy over the years since it came out. And of course, for those of you watching or listening, you probably know the controversy is based around Kirk's death and the fact that they would kill off Captain Kirk. And the way, I think, even more than the fact they killed him off, is the way in which they killed him off, right? This idea that he didn't really have a hero's death, a death that you would expect from such a legendary character.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. At the beginning of the movie, it was kind of, I like it. They're on the Enterprise B, and it's just a great, I thought it was a great scenario, and he's coming in to kind of commemorate the launch of the Enterprise B. Um, and he ends up being like very focal in saving the Enterprise B, actually, but throughout the
Yeah.
course, the the Nexus ribbon hits the ship, and we believe that he is killed. Um,
Yeah.
but of course, in James T. Kirk fashion, it's in the it's in the duty of like saving everybody, like in that fashion. So I thought that was good. Um, but but yeah, like his it felt. Now I know in Generations they actually saved like millions or billions of people through the course of the end when they stop Dr. Soren.
Yeah,
But
the Viridian
his yeah,
system, right? Because was there a
yeah,
couple planets I think that have a population in the Viridian system. Viridian 3, which is where
yeah,
the whole Dr. Sauron situation happens with Picard and Kirk, is uninhabited, I believe. But
yeah,
there's at least one or two other planets in the system, I believe is what Data says, where it is inhabited.
yeah. It kind of felt small. His, when he died to me a little
Hmm.
bit. And this just made me start thinking about, I hadn't put this together yet, but when we thought that Spock was dead at the end of Star Trek 2, which was the most one of the most amazing like scenes like ever, and you compare this to Generations, just like no, this is very, very different. I think very, very different levels.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think now, obviously, Generations wouldn't have been the same type of movie. You wouldn't have had the Kirk and Picard interactions.
Mm.
But had Kirk died saving, even though it was a skeleton crew, saving the ship, quote unquote, right? Saving the Enterprise, in this case, the Enterprise B, to me, I think that would have been somewhat satisfying, right? He dies saving the crew, the people on board the ship, including uh the folks they had rescued from the other ships that were eventually destroyed by the ribbon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I felt like that would have been more of a quote unquote hero's death. But the way in which he dies on Viridian 3 with Picard there felt, it just didn't feel right. And I think a lot of people felt that way for a very long time. Um, I liked the fact that, so to me, I don't know if you thought it this way, Chris. Even though I don't like the way in which they killed Kirk in this movie, um, with Picard being there at the moment of Kirk's death, to me that was the proverbial passing of the torch fully, right? Because you remember when Next Generation starts, the series starts, they're still filming movies. They're still filming the original movies. In fact, I believe it's Star Trek 6 was the movie that was filming or finishing filming at the time of the filming the season, first part of season
Mm-hmm.
one of Next Generation. So there was never that kind of passing of the torch. Really, I kind of felt like, as much as I didn't like the way they killed Kirk, there that proverbial torch is passed from him to Picard in that moment that he dies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. I liked the interaction between Picard and Kirk a lot, actually. Um,
Yeah, same.
yeah, and Kirk's not actually he's in it at the beginning, and then he's in it at the end. Yeah, so he's actually when I rewatched it, he's actually in a much smaller part of the movie than was in my memory, right?
Hmm.
So but I did like the back and forth between Captain Kirk and Picard, particularly like when they're in the Nexus.
Yeah,
And uh, Kirk, like Picard felt very duty bound, right, to say, "Hey, we need to go and we need to save everybody and come back, come back with me, Captain Kirk, because you're a Starfleet officer." And Picard became very uh, stern's not the right word, but he became quite serious with Kirk to try and get Kirk's help. And Kirk was I love the way he played it because Kirk was like, yeah, I've saved the universe, I've saved the galaxy like many times, and I've kind of got a different attitude about things now, right? Maybe
yeah,
the galaxy owes me one. And at some point Picard, like you'll kind of learn, or you'll get to where I am at now. So I liked that a lot from Kirk, actually. I thought that was kind of a neat play.
I agree. I love that line where he says, don't talk to me about duty. I was out saving the galaxy when your grandfather was in
Yeah.
diapers, this idea
Yeah.
of that it's signifying the idea that there is a generation gap here, right? I mean, they look, given Patrick Stewart's baldness, right? You look at the two, but no, but I mean seriously, you look at
Yeah.
the two of them in the scene, and they don't look significantly different in age. Of course, the
Yeah.
characters are, right? Kirk would be at this point probably what, pushing 100 or something like
Hmm.
that, or maybe not quite that. And Picard's not there yet. He's you again, you're going off based off what their age would be in the series and the movies and stuff. There's an age gap there, right? And so that scene I think is important because like you said, Kirk is at the end of his career, right? He was an admiral, then he was demoted because of his actions, and then made a captain, and
Hmm.
um he's being lectured by a junior person to him about duty and being a Starfleet officer, and he's like, no, I'm good. And I love the interaction because Kirk is looking at the nexus or this thing that he's in. He doesn't really understand it because he's one moment he's on board the Enterprise B, the next moment he's, you know, out there. I think it was in Idaho or something like that, where the
Yeah.
Montana or whatever this house is supposed to be, and he's gone back in time to a time when he has this girlfriend that he was going to ask to marry him, and it doesn't work out because he gets called away and takes the, so forth. And this idea of being able to go back in time and correct a mistake that was made. You can understand why Dr. Sarin is itching to get back in there, right? Where time doesn't exist, and he has the ability to kind of manipulate time and change things for the what he thinks is for the better.
Yeah. Malcolm McDowell played, I think, an excellent job as Dr. Soren.
Yeah.
I think that the difficulty with the character of Dr. Soren is kind of wish you had a longer time to get to know him. Because what we understand in Generations is the Borg, um, I believe, destroyed his planet, maybe, or assimilated his planet or his people. Um, I believe, and
Yeah, remember
his
he's the same race as Guinan. They're both Elorian.
and
Yep.
yeah, and so his family was affected by the Borg too. So he's like, he's devastated, and the Nexus is just this place where he can escape, like, from all of that and just be in this place of joy or contentment.
Yeah.
So, but he's a tragic figure, but I don't think there's enough time to in this movie to develop that tragedy in him, because you meet him, and then a little bit throughout the movie he's he's knocking Geordi out, he's hurting Data, um and then you learn he's made a deal with the Klingon sisters.
Yeah, the Duras
So the
sisters.
Duras
Yeah.
sisters, that's right.
Well, and he's really he's using them, right? He's using them as a means, right? As a vessel, in this case, literally a vessel, to get him where he needs to be and some technology and everything, in order to carry out his plan, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're right. Malcolm McDowell was really good in this role, like really, really good. Um, I very much enjoyed his. Do you feel like this movie could have this is something I've also read of from critiques over the decades about this movie. And I watched this movie a lot when I was younger. I mean, I had this movie on VHS and on DVD. I
Yeah.
watched this movie a lot. Um, do you ever feel like this movie, instead of being a movie, the story should have been like a two-part episode?
I feel it could have been, or even like a two-part movie. Dr. Soren is he's very much that, like, that character in Voyager, in that
Oh
two-part
yeah, and,
time.
Year
Yeah.
of Hell, part one
Yeah,
and
Year
two.
of Hell.
Yep.
He's very similar, actually,
Yeah.
to that character, right?
It's a good
So
comparison.
yeah. And in Year of Hell, you develop a little bit more compassion, um, to the antagonist there. So, and Malcolm McDowell was a fabulous like actor. If you want to have someone play opposite of Sir Patrick Stewart, like Malcolm McDowell is is it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he played in Clockwork Orange, and he was terrific. So
Yeah, and he was in one of the newer versions of the Halloween movie opposite the Michael Myers
mhm.
character. So you have to be a strong persona to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's where I feel like, man, really, I was looking to feel more sympathetic to him, or hoping the the film could explore how tragic a figure he is. And I didn't feel that they went as far as they could have gone to make us feel like, hey, he is like a tragic figure. Um, which is interesting. When you think about the greatest like villains in Star Trek, Khan always comes to my mind, right? And then
Of course.
if you're gonna have Khan opposite like Kirk, Khan is just so uh, he is just he is out there. He is over the top. He's just this magnificent like character. Um, and I feel like we could have gotten that from Malcolm McDowell, but it was just maybe it didn't get to that level. So
Yeah, I mean it's really hard to try and fill the shoes of Khan as a
yeah.
villain, right? Um, to me, Dr. Sarin wasn't scary in any way. He didn't have that scary persona type of mentality. I mean, there was a moment where he's appearing to in some way torture or whatever Geordi, right? His visor's off and Geordi appears to be out of uniform, and so there's that kind of darker moment from him.
Yeah.
But in general, he's not necessarily trying to kill anybody to get what he wants. I mean, no, the idea of destroying the Viridian system because he's using something to draw in the Nexus wave, but he's not a really, really bad guy necessarily. Not in the way in which, Khan is portrayed. I mean, Khan tried to literally take over the earth, right? And rule the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Dr. Sarin isn't. Dr. Sarin's trying to get to this nexus in order to maybe change events and save his family and so forth. And so, yeah, I think that the Year of Hell is a great comparison to that in those two antagonists, as you said.
Yeah. Couple things. Other thoughts I had was I didn't it was good to do this refresher watch because I had forgotten how prominent Guinan was in this movie.
Yeah.
And she's in it a lot, and a pretty central figure, and I think important in terms of kind of navigating through the Nexus and explaining what the Nexus is, because I think she's actually the one that explains what the Nexus is.
Yep.
Um, but another thought I had was, a big part of this movie was Data getting his emotion chip and putting it in. And even though that was lends itself to a lot of comedy, um, maybe having that uh, emotion chip, because it's actually a significant part of the movie where they're exploring or having scenes having to do with the emotion chip. But that also takes away from time to explore like Dr. Soren's character, right? So if you want to develop him as this like a tragic character, um, so that maybe you're not afraid of him, but maybe you feel more sympathy for him. Um, you know, we didn't, yeah, Data's kind of all of that attention on Data, kind of took away from that opportunity. And it's just the emotion chip plays a big part in the later movies, and it is important for sure. But I don't know. I wonder if how different it could have been.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Um, the data the emotion chip that Data takes in, right? He's had it before. He has it in the series, right? Um, the emotion chip is a somewhat of a bad guy in this, I feel like, right? Because if Data didn't have his emotion chip in, he wouldn't have been so scared. He wouldn't have been hiding. Geordi never would be captured.
Yeah.
And therefore, they wouldn't be able to take his visor and mess with it so that when he's brought back to the ship, he's able to see the shield harmonics or shield frequency, which
Yeah.
then allows the Klingon bird of prey. That's a whole other story. The Klingon
Yeah.
bird of prey to then shoot easily through the shields of the Enterprise D, which I'm like, wait a second. How many times when they fight the Borg rotated their shield harmonics, they couldn't do that against an old ass Klingon bird of prey? Like, come on.
Yeah.
That whole thing was absurd. That even with that, they didn't have the ability to rotate their shields or the ability an old bird of prey, and
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I know they
Yeah.
got a couple good shots off, but come on, man, for real. Anyways, that's a rabbit trail we can go down, but yeah, the Data's chip,
Hmm.
motion chip, plays a prominent role, like you said. And thinking about it, as you brought that up, you're probably right on that, that it did take focus away from a time of him learning about Dr. Soren. Like it'd have been kind of neat if he had been like on the Klingon ship and they did a flashback to him with his family or something, and then the Borg come
Hmm.
in, which would have been great because that would have been a nice segue into First Contact, which is all about
Yeah.
the Borg. Like
Yeah.
that would have been really neat to have that flashback, like you said, and learn more about Soren and see the tragic moments and events specifically in detail that lead and drive him to do what it is that he's doing in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. Because so many of the interplay with the other characters are like with Crusher and Troy, it's focused on the Data, right? Oh,
Yeah,
Data's got this issue here, so that is what their scenes are involved in. But having some sort of flashback scene with Dr. Soren, I think would have given a different feel to the movie for sure.
I think
One of
so.
the
Or
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was gonna swap topics in a little bit, but
Oh
go
no,
ahead.
I was just gonna say like even maybe having the very beginning of the movie instead of it being the
Ah, yeah,
Enterprise B, you could still have that, right? But like let that be like the second kind of scene or second part of the movie, and the first part of the movie be about Dr. Sauron meeting him, seeing his family, everything, the Borg attack happening. So now it's not a flashback. Now it's just a, hey, this is happening. Then flash forward X number of years. You're on the Enterprise B. They go through all that. Then flash forward again.
yeah, yeah. Completely, I agree. And no, I'm thinking about it more. I mean, you have William Shatner, Patrick Stewart, um, and Malcolm McDowell, and I think most, uh, you know, it really felt like William Shatner's part became too small, and then not enough focus on Dr. Soren. But you've got these three like great characters that can like really make an impact like through the movie.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
maybe
the more I think about it, you're right, 100%, Chris. Like there is a lot of focus on Data, and
uh,
the poster for Generations, which is the thumbnail for this video on YouTube. It's Kirk and Picard. It's not Kirk, Data, and Picard, or it's not
yeah,
just Data. You know what I mean? I think I've honestly never really thought about the amount of focus that was on Data in this. And you bring up a really great point. They used a lot of screen time to do that. And I felt like maybe they could have done it in a way which they still brought that element in that then affects Geordi being captured by Dr. Sarin,
yeah,
but maybe a lot less than what they did so that the focus isn't taken off of what this whole thing's about, and we do learn more because like you're right, we don't know a lot about him. He's introduced very quickly and then he's thrown in. All of a sudden he's this bad guy. He meets Picard. He says, I got to get to the Amagosa Observatory and all this, that, and the other, and
yeah,
or get back to Viridian, whatever he says to Picard. I got to get back to my research or whatever. And It's really interesting the way in which they balanced and the dynamics of all that, and I think it was off.
Yeah, I agree. And whether or not the Duras sister, I guess I understand why the Duras sisters were in, but the Duras sisters are com connected to the series, right? So
Yes.
they're in Star Trek TNG. So you kind of have to have you don't have to have knowledge of them, but having background of the Duras sisters from TNG is helpful. So,
Yeah.
mm,
And they do make an
give
appearance
me
on DS9 too.
yes they do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they are basically somewhat exiled or disgraced Klingons, right? The House of Duras, I believe, is not an honored house in the Klingon Empire, and which ironic we have the Klingon coffee back
yeah,
here,
that's right.
but it's not, and so because of that, they're kind of sort of like rogue mercenary Klingons, kind of doing their own thing. I love they brought the Duras sisters into this. I thought they added a great element to it. They added that kind of sleazy, like, we're gonna, do this, that, and the other, and they want to get at the Federation, and of course
Yeah,
we know Picard's involvement with Worf and the whole Chadish, right?
yeah,
In TNG, and Picard's involvement with Gowron and all the negotiations there. And I'm sure the Duras sisters have it out for the Federation and for Picard. So it kind of makes sense that they would want to take this on in order to get back at them. And that was the agreement, I believe, was they'd do this for him, and he gives them a chance to get back at the Enterprise, get back at Picard, get back at the Federation, Starfleet. Um, I like that they did it, but you're right. If you don't know a lot about the Duras sisters from the series and then from D Space Nine, they may not make as much sense in this movie.
yeah, exactly. Some of the things that I that stood out to me, or I noticed definitely on this time watching, um, some of the cool stuff I thought when they were the uniforms that they were wearing. So you saw like some of them were wearing the traditional like the TNG era uniforms, but they started phasing in the DS9 era uniforms like throughout. And so Picard
Yeah,
actually wears a couple different sets of uniforms, and then you've got the different uniforms like next to each other. So I kind of liked that attention to detail because DS9 is airing at this moment in 1994, I think,
correct.
right?
Yeah, they
Right?
would have
Yeah.
been in season 2 of DS9, I believe,
Yeah.
as far as airtime when the movie came out and so forth. But yeah,
Yeah, so I like that. And they even talk about DS9 in the Generations like movie. I think when Worf uh yeah, was it? When Worf comes back? No. I'm sorry. I'm getting my movies mixed
yeah, he
up.
hasn't he
Yeah,
hasn't
yeah.
left yet. So
Yeah.
in fact, now that I think about it, Chris, as I'm looking at a photo on my wall, I believe actually DS9 might have even been in season 3 or 4, 3 or 4. I don't know, depending on the dates of when I don't have the dates in front of me.
Mhm.
And the reason I say that is because the comm badges that they
Yeah.
wear in Generations are the ones that they start wearing in the later seasons of DS9. I want to say it's like late season 3 or season 4 when those comm badge changes on the Federation with the round gold in the back to the other design that
Yeah.
you see in, because you see it in at some point in DS9 that changes in Generations. Voyager wears them, then you have the First Contact wing, blah 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 down the line. So that's kind of why I'm thinking, actually, maybe it's more like late season 3 or some period of time. Who freaking cares?
Yeah.
Whatever. We know, bro. But you're 100% right. DS9 is
Yeah.
airing at this time, and so that's yeah.
Yeah. So I enjoyed that a lot. I also enjoyed the aesthetics. I thought were very beautiful. Because there's a lot of sunlight aesthetics where they're in the room, and you've got this beautiful
Mhm.
sunlight that's you see on the characters and you see in the background. And I thought was very beautiful how they did the lighting like on the ship and on the bridge. And a thing that I really noticed was that there was no engine hum from the Enterprise, and I actually found that very distracting. Um, be, because in the conversations, like you might have Riker coming in the captain's ready room, or they might be in sick bay, or they might be in the bridge, and I couldn't hear. Maybe it was in the. Maybe it is in there, but I couldn't hear any engine hum, and it it kind of took me out of the movie a little bit because it just made it feel like a play.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if it was a version I was watching or my speakers, but I did not hear it. So
I didn't even notice that. And
yeah,
my thought on this, Chris, is I wonder if that obviously had to be intentional. I don't think they would just, oh, oops, we forgot that. Um, there is some scenes in engineering where I think there's a little bit of that, at least some noise from the engine.
yeah.
But you're right. I don't think there is any across the different shots inside the ship. And I'm thinking that that is probably intentional because this is on the big screen and that engine humming noise might be distracting or might be more prominent because you're in a theater with different speakers, vice watching it on your TV at home. Because back in '94, you didn't have these big, HD paper thin TVs and speakers, all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm wondering if they did that because maybe they felt like that noise would be too much, overpowering or distracting or something in a movie theater setting, vice watching it at home.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I could
Yeah,
come up with as to why that would be the
yeah.
case. But I didn't even notice it. So good on you for that.
Wow. I'm gonna go back and look at some TNG episodes. Uh, and then I'll go back and watch Generations a little bit and see if it's different, at least on my
Yeah, the
teaser.
hum's definitely there
Yeah.
in the series for sure. You're
Yeah.
100% right on that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I liked like even more on the aesthetics. I mean, I liked the Enterprise B a lot. I thought it was great. It was beautiful. It looked like it should, look. And I like the holodeck scenes a lot when they're on the ship. That was
Oh
great.
yeah. Worf's
Yeah.
promotion ceremony.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I thought that picking the Enterprise B to be an Excelsior class ship was appropriate. I mean that the Excelsior
Hmm.
plays a big role in the original series movies, right? Starting with Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, and how they steal the Enterprise, and this big, powerful new ship is supposed to go out and chase Enterprise down, and Scotty freaking
Yeah.
does a little number on it very easily. That line he says where he's like, "Oh, the more they overdo it, or the more they overdo the plumbing, the easier it is to clog the pipes," or something like that.
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
some Scotty line, right? Um, and then of course we know Sulu becomes Captain Sulu of the Excelsior.
Yeah.
That guy who was the captain when the Enterprise was stolen must have gotten demoted or like removed from his
Yeah,
position
yeah,
because of that.
yeah.
Um, but so it felt only fitting that the Enterprise B was an Excelsior class ship. That was the newest, most powerful, um, excuse me, line of ship that they had at the time. So the Enterprise B, I loved. I love that they had Alan Rickman as Captain John Harriman of the Enterprise B. We also know
Yeah.
him from Ferris Bueller's Day Off and a million other things. I thought he played the role great. This kind of newish captain who's a little bit unsure. He's got this legend captain sitting there, and he just, yeah, take us out, Captain Kirk or Admiral Kirk. Would you do the honors? And it very fitting, I would think, in a position like that. You're talking about a legendary Starfleet officer, right? You're a little nervous trying to go out. The
Totally.
enter Yeah, the
Yeah.
Enterprise D aesthetic. I agree with you there 100%. They add the extra seating and some of the extra consoles
Mhm.
and screens on the bridge, like almost like a little miniature refit that I thought was very appropriate. Looked really great. Made the ship, I feel like a little bit more militaristic, sort of. Add a little bit more militaristic element to it, less of an exploration element.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I thought all that was great.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Even I think about the scene. Oh, sorry. Let me talk about another thing first. Did you see
Yeah,
Tracy Coco?
yeah, she's
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. I was like, holy moly. She's like,
Yeah,
I
and
thought that
she
was
got blown
awesome.
out of her seat in that movie too, and survived. Remember, she had the DS9 era top, and it was a red top, right?
Yeah.
Remember she was
Yeah, I
on our
remember
show, a podcast with us here on the
talking
show,
about that.
talking about that. And I guess it was Jonathan Frakes who asked her if she wanted to be blown out of her chair and then she'd survive or something like that. And she says, yeah, absolutely. And they'd asked if she'd ever worked closely with explosive pyrotechnics, whatever. And she's like, no. So she did it.
She did it.
If you haven't checked out our episode with her, was one, I think it was our first episode we put on YouTube. We had many other before that, but our first episode on YouTube was our interview with her. So go check that out. You can find that in the channel below or on your favorite podcast platform. I know we've got to have her back on at some point too, but yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was, yeah, she was all over the ship. That's for sure. I mean, she was in over 100 episodes of Next Gen and DS9 and Voyager. So she's been in a lot of Star Trek.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Now, I think we should go back and address the elephant in the room, Chris. And that is the idea that the Federation flagship is taken down by an old beater Klingon bird of prey.
Yeah.
People were pissed about that. The Enterprise E is a beautiful ship. I love the Sovereign class. I think it's gorgeous, especially on the big screen. But it's like two iconic, legendary things in this movie, Kirk and the Enterprise D, both taken down in the dumbest ways. You know, Kirk falls off a friggin' bridge, and the Enterprise D is taken down by a bird of prey.
Yeah.
To me, that's absurd. I mean, the Enterprise D survived all that stuff, survived the Borg attack, the Cube, Q, all these different things, the Romulans, all these, and that's how it's going to go down, and it's going to separate, and the saucer section is going to crash on a rando planet. I think it was Viridian. It wasn't Viridian 3. Was it Viridian 4 or 2 or something like that? I don't know. In the Viridian system.
Yeah.
And to me, it felt again like a legendary thing was given an unfair ending.
Yeah. It was weird.
It was.
So they get a coolant leak and it becomes a big deal. Like coolant leak, and they lose the magnetic locks on the warp core. It doesn't make sense to me. We talked about the shield harmonics. And and they acknowledge the shield harmonics like right there in battle. Like, and then so they've obviously got a lot of experience. Like, why don't you just change your shield harmonics?
Yes.
Change your shield
harmonics. Rotate them. Rotate them. Like they do it against the Borg. They can't do it against a friggin' Klingon bird of prey that you should be able to wax the floor with it. Come on.
And why couldn't they eject the core? Like,
I guess, if the magnetic constrictors are locked, that must have had something to do with not being able to eject the core or something like that. But
I guess, I don't know. We're getting, really, it's kind of awesome getting this.
We're getting really nerdy, but that's okay.
Yeah,
that's what we do, Chris. This is like the heart of our podcast right here.
Absolutely. So,
about our favorite things.
Yeah, it did not make sense like that they could go down like that easily. I don't mind that they do a saucer separation in the movie because the saucer separation is cool. But if they're going to do that, we saw the battle bridge, maybe less than a handful of times throughout TNG. They might as well make a big deal about the battle bridge. If they're going to separate and then do something with the battle bridge and do something really great with the star drive.
Well, the reason why they had to separate the saucer section was they had to evacuate the star drive, which is where the battle bridge is, because of the warp core breach. It was going to blow up, so they had to get everybody out of there and get it to the saucer section. So, to me, it just felt like losing an old friend, but in the worst way possible when it came to the Enterprise D. You know what I mean? I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
You go on this journey with them for 7 seasons in this ship. You come to love the ship. The ship becomes a character, does it not? I mean, the ship is its own character. And then you do it dirty like that to destroy it the way you do. And again, I love the Enterprise. It's beautiful. It is very befitting of a flagship of the Federation and of Starfleet.
Yeah.
But I just wonder how much different would those movies have been with the Enterprise D instead of the Enterprise E. Now, obviously, we know Picard season 3, they bring the Enterprise D back Geordi restores her, brings her back
Yeah.
to glory, which is great. It's like they're undoing a little bit of this movie,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is. And you could have just had the Enterprise D retire. It could have,
Something.
yeah, it could have been badly damaged, where they had to take it back to space dock and do like a multi-year refit on it. And in the meantime, there's a new E model that they take out. Um,
Wouldn't it have been cool though, Chris? Like
uh,
because of the glimpses that Picard had during All Good Things, that in Generations,
mm,
the Enterprise D is refit like the future Enterprise with like the three nacelles and the upgraded weapons, and it's like kind of almost like this warship. Not that you're
yeah,
going to war, but you're prepared to go to war. You're prepared to battle as the flagship. That would have
yeah,
been that would have been cool. Of course, I if you do that, then you really can't justify an old Klingon bird of prey destroying your ship. But that would have
yeah,
been cool.
yeah, totally. It'd been totally cool. Yeah, the scene where the saucer's descending and crash landing on the planet, I liked that as a scene in itself. Like I thought that was, it was dramatic. It was pretty neat. You see them crashing in and moving forward, and I love like how Riker's like uh, the intensity on Riker's face, and he's in the captain's chair, like
Yeah.
writing it out. You even have Troy, like she's at the helm, like doing her thing. Like he says, "All right, Troy, take the helm," and she does. So I thought that was really cool. Or she's exercising her skills right there. So like as a scene to watch the saucer section come down and crash land was cool. But they could have just had that crash land, and they could have had the star drive just that could have crash landed too, but just save the star drive.
I have to disagree with you on this one, Chris.
You
I
didn't
don't think
like
that
you didn't like it.
I don't think the scene was cool. I hated it. Because well, but think about it, right?
Yeah,
You're talking about the destruction of a ship that you've for so long, right? We've talked about this
yeah,
before. TNG is your favorite. DS9 is mine, but it's very close second is TNG. But I grew up watching TNG. I did not get into DS9 until, you know, many, many years ago now, obviously, decades ago now. But um, you know, around the time I started college,
yeah,
which is far too many years ago now to think about. Um, but so TNG, that was my show, just like it was your show. And so you come to love that ship so much, and then they just feel like they just kind of chuck it to the side and discard it like it's nothing. This is the flagship. I mean, that ship survives so much. You think about the episode Cause and Effect, where it keeps getting blown up over and over and over
hmm
again, that temporal
yeah,
causality loop. It survives that, but it can't survive a freaking Klingon bird of prey. I mean, come on. I don't know. I really, really, really disliked the fact that they destroyed it. Again, nothing
yeah,
against the E. I love the E. It's gorgeous, but I just don't like the fact that they destroyed such an I'm going to call it a character, okay, for this purposes.
yeah.
They destroyed an iconic character. They destroyed Kirk and the Enterprise D, two iconic characters in the Star Trek franchise.
It feels like when they killed Luke Skywalker in a similar fashion in the
When did Luke
movie.
Skywalker die?
Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well yeah. I guess those movies don't exist, right?
They're not part of
You're
the
right.
canon,
They're
Chris. We
not
don't
part of
talk
the
about those.
canon.
Yeah, Luke
Yeah,
didn't die. What
yeah,
are you
that's
talking
right.
about?
Yeah, he did not die. He actually did not die.
No, he didn't.
Yeah. It feels
But
like this.
I get
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
meaning. I get what you're saying.
It
Yeah, yeah.
it feels like what did I just watch? Right? You see
Right?
that, right? You're like, what did I just watch? No, they couldn't have done that.
Yeah. You're sitting there like pinching your arm, going, "Am I asleep? Am I dreaming? This what is going on here?"
Yeah, what is going on? Did they really do that? Because that's a mistake, you know? Because that's not right.
So think about this, right? From a creative perspective, that's a super super gutsy decision
Mhm.
to make to destroy the Enterprise, to kill. I mean, imagine the discussion that had to have gone on at CBS, Paramount, or just Paramount, whatever. I guess it just been Paramount maybe to kill Kirk. So they come up with this idea, right? They're saying, "Hey, generations, it's gonna be Kirk and Picard. You fans are gonna get what you've been asking for and what you've wanted to see for a long time is Kirk and Picard together because you didn't get that in the series, right?" And they like, "Hey, let's kill him." Picard? No, no, let's kill Kirk. What? You want to kill Captain Kirk? Now, mind you, believe this movie came out after Gene Roddenberry's passing. If Gene Roddenberry had been alive, do you really think he would have killed Kirk?
Hmm.
My guess is no.
Hmm.
My guess is I don't think he's going to kill Kirk. Kirk is that's one of his babies, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
character he helped create. So I'm not seeing that happen.
Yeah.
Um, that's a bold, bold move to take down Kirk and a character like the Enterprise D in the same friggin' movie, or in the words of our Battlestar friends, frackin' movie.
Yeah. Fracking movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I I, I don't I don't think I saw this movie in the movie theater. I think I saw it after it was on VHS. I
Okay.
know I saw First Contact and then the other one's on in the theater, but I don't remember seeing Generations in the theater. Maybe I did. I just don't remember. But I wonder and think back. And did you see this movie in the theater? Do you remember?
I think I did. I think I did. Yeah.
Do you by chance remember what type of reaction or the reaction of others around you in that movie when Kirk dies and they destroy the Enterprise? I mean, there had to have been some level of either outcry or people being mad. I mean, I don't know. I just can't imagine. And if you're watching or listening to us right now and you remember being at the theater and you remember the reaction of yourself and others around, please share that with us because I am legitimately interested to know what the either outcry or the response was from the Star Trek fandom when this
Hmm.
movie came out in 94 and they do the things they did in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, I recall dislike for for sure. Um, Now I did get to watch Star Trek 6: The Undiscovered Country in the theater, and I distinctly remember I loved it like this throughout the entire movie. And at the end of the movie, just this feeling of I felt like joy, because especially distinctly remembering the signature scenes at the end credits when all the cast members were doing their signature, just like intense, like wow,
Mm.
like joy. And not wanting to see it over, the series over, but just like wow, this was really great thing. Um, yeah, but generations, man.
Okay, Chris. So let me ask you this question, and it's kind of a two-parter. If you look at Star Trek 6, and we both talked about this, and we'll do a deep dive of Star Trek 6 at some point down the road. I know that'll be a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, Star Trek 6, we kind of, well, I don't think we kind of, we do both agree that it was such a great way to wrap up the original series cast and crew, right? And it was so good. Do you think that they did a disservice by bringing Kirk back into a movie, given that they wrapped up that series so well and they rode off into the sunset, to coin a phrase? Or did you like the fact they brought him back and it doesn't actually hurt the way in which they ended?
I think that it really did a disservice to Star Trek 6. Um, Particularly the way it ended. I mean, we had both Scotty and Chekhov and Kirk in Generations, right? So
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
I mean, they couldn't bring in everybody, and that's, you know, that's okay. But still, when you have Scotty and Chekhov and Kirk, you end up missing everybody. You just miss
Mm.
them, right? You just like you're kind of bringing in part of them. So it's like you feel unfulfilled maybe a little bit. So if you can't bring in all of them, then just don't even bring them in. And then you don't have this sense of unfulfillment.
Yeah.
Star Trek 6, you feel like fulfilled, right? But
Yeah.
Generations, yeah, I just feel like Generations was like, that was weird. Like, okay. Yeah.
You make another good point because why? I mean, there could be a thought of, well, if Kirk's there and they're touring the new ship and they're there to kind of be part of its christening or whatever, why isn't Spock there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why Chekhov and Scotty? I mean, Scotty can understand, right? He's there to see the engineering, blah, blah, blah. And nothing against Chekhov, but why Chekhov over like Spock or Uhura or I mean Sulu? I guess maybe he's retired and not doing. I don't know. Maybe they're the last three serving members of Starfleet at that point from that crew. I'm not really
Yeah.
sure what the thought process was, but you're right. It is very unfulfilling, and I kind of feel like with Generations they untied the ribbon that was tied with Star Trek Six. And if you think about it, Star Trek Generations is the first Star Trek movie since Star Trek Six at this period
Yeah.
of time,
Yeah, that's
right?
right.
So you're going from such an incredible movie in Star Trek Six on the big screen, and you had mentioned when we talked about the Star Trek finales that if that was the finale of TOS, that would have been your favorite series finale of all of them.
Yeah.
And we also talked about how All Good Things should have been a movie,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if instead of that being the finale, if you had All Good Things be the Generations movie, you get rid of Generations, then you go to First Contact. I mean, man, you talk about two bangers, right? Two amazing movies back to back with All Good Things script or idea in the first movie, and then First Contact in that second movie. You could probably end it right there
Yeah,
as
that'll
far as
be
the TNG movies, and you'd be done
yeah.
because Insurrection and Nemesis, meh, take them or leave them.
Yeah. And that'll be great when we talk about First Contact for sure, because First Contact First Contact was a great movie. I mean,
Yeah,
that is one where you have the a Borg Queen and you have Picard, and those are like clashing as very, very central to the movie. Right. So
yeah, and I
yeah.
believe we talked about this before too, right? But I'm pretty sure First Contact was the first one to introduce the Borg Queen idea. Um,
Yeah, because that was
I
before the Voyager Borg Queen, right? I think.
I believe
Yeah.
so, yes. And because of that, that affects how they film the Borg scenes and the Borg scripts and everything else in Voyager. Because before that, all you have is just this collective of the Borg, right? That we meet in All
Hmm.
Good Things, or not no, in Best of Both Worlds. We meet them in Q Who is the first time we ever meet the Borg,
Yeah.
where Q introduces Picard and the Enterprise to the Borg because I guess I don't know, he needs some entertainment and flings them into the Delta Quadrant. They meet the Borg and he flings them back. And it's a very interesting, very popular Q episode for good reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I was just curious in your thoughts about that because I think we definitely feel the same way that um, y- Generations undoes what Star Trek Six did so well and so beautifully, which is wrapping up that crew.
Yeah. I agree. And maybe, they were thinking in their minds, like, oh, who can we get from the original crew? And that was who they could get at the time.
That's
Um,
true. It could be.
and that they thought, oh, this would be a good idea. But 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 it just didn't turn out it just didn't
No,
turn out well.
and I like that you brought up earlier Guinan. I think we should mention her for a minute
Yeah.
because this was great to see Guinan's entry into the Star Trek world because we're going back in time, right, with the Enterprise B, and they rescue Guinan and others from the ships that are destroyed by the Nexus ribbon.
Hmm.
I think it's great that they bring her in, so you kind of see her entry point. You get a little bit of an idea, like, oh, well, she's an Elorian, just like Dr. Sauron is, so there's some tie
Yeah.
in there, and you learn about how much she is so closely tied to Picard and how closely she is tied to this time. It was, I think, a great touch that they did that.
Yeah, I agree. And we could have even had more of Guinan in there and Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, we had a good amount, but
Yeah,
we could have even had more. And I thought she's such an important character for Picard. Um, and to
yeah,
have her there to be his guide in the Nexus was a good choice, and that was pretty good.
I agree because think about it, right? She knows Q. She's tied closely with Q.
Yeah,
She's tied with the Borg. She's tied with Picard. She's tied with Dr. Soren, the Nexus, this time travel. I mean, we think about the moment that Picard and Guinan share in the episode Yesterday's Enterprise.
yeah,
And him. him and her talking about this idea of time. I mean, there's so much. She really is such an integral part of the Picard storyline, right? And then of course they bring her back in Picard season 2 as
Yeah.
well. And so that indicates the importance of her. It'd be actually very fascinating to kind of do a deep dive on her as a character sometime and the way in which she's interwoven throughout the series and the movies and even into Picard season 3 and those episodes in which she appears because the things that are discussed and talked about, I mean, she really does have a critical role in Picard's life.
I agree. Do you notice in the Nexus when Picard is in the Nexus, like he first goes in, it's Christmas time. It's Christmas time now when we're
It
recording this
is. That's a
podcast.
good
Yeah.
point. It
Yeah.
is.
And Picard had a lot of children. I was counting. What was it like
3 or
four?
4. Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had a big family. That was pretty neat to see. Picard's motivation throughout this movie, you know, you and I talked about this a little bit before. Like he gets the tragic news that his brother and his nephew were killed in a fire. So that is um very, very impactful to Picard.
Yeah.
Like he's really shaken up. Um and I I, I felt uh, kind of like, oh, I wish they hadn't have done that with his family.
I
I
agree.
mean, yeah. I mean, Patrick Stewart is such a terrific actor. Like he does a great job with that tragic news and transforming it into how, Picard would take it, you know. But they made such a great effort um, to reconcile the relationship between Picard and his brother in the series.
Yeah.
It was just really sad to see this happen, you know. And kind of, I wish they hadn't done that. It was sad.
I agree. I think one of the things that makes that moment important is the consistent reminder to Picard, as well as the reminders he gets from Dr. Soren about time and the preciousness of time. Dr. Soren's lost his family. Picard now loses his family, and that gives them common ground.
Mm-hmm.
There are some very key moments in this movie that I really like that stand out to me that make this feel like a Trek episode. So it does what Trek does so well on the small screen and attempts to bring it to the large screen. We've talked about this throughout our rant here about all the missteps in Generations. I think some of the positive steps in this case is when Dr. Soren mentions to Picard that time is like a predator. It's stalking you, right? It's constantly coming after you. And Picard begins to think about that. And then if you remember at the end, when they're standing on the bridge of the Enterprise and it's all beat up and it's him and Riker, and he says, someone once told me that time is like a predator, it stalks you. And he says, I don't agree with that. Time is like a companion that goes with you on the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found myself over the years thinking about those two viewpoints on time. And for me, I'm not sure which one I agree with. At times, no pun intended, time does feel like a predator. It's coming for you. No, time waits for no one, as they say, right? That you blink and all of a sudden this time's gone by. We talked about how it felt like just yesterday it was Halloween, and just yesterday we were in Chicago for the 20th anniversary of Battlestar Galactica convention. And now we're at the time of this recording, we're 4 days from Christmas, 2024. And I think about my kids and they're 8 and 11, and it feels like yesterday they were little ones. Like we just watched a video earlier with some friends of our daughter opening a gift on Christmas from when she was like
Mm.
4, and she wasn't even sure what it was, even though it was a thing she'd been asking for months and months and months, and it was very funny. But I looked at that, I'm like, my gosh, it it's like yesterday that she was that little, and
Yeah.
so there's a part of me that's like, yeah, time is coming for everybody, kind of like a predator. Dr. Sauron, I don't feel like is far off. And I think about Picard and I go, his idea that time is this journey, that this companion that goes with us on the journey, I could see that too. This idea of memory, good memories, and things that you carry with you like a companion as you go through time. And so I don't mean to get too philosophical here, but when we were going to talk about this rant of generations, those two particular moments really stood out to me. This movie is all about time, right? It's about time travel with the Nexus. It's about generations, the generation of the original series and next gen, and that time period in between them, and the time period between the captains and the time that they're in the Nexus and trying to make things right and do things correctly and fix mistakes. And time is the theme of this movie, like it would be the theme of a TNG episode. So what I love about Generations is that they take something very Trek-esque and they take a theme and they dissect it and they use that and they interweave that throughout the episode of the movie. And as I've gotten older, now that I guess I'm 40 now, um, time is very real. Like I don't know if this is right or wrong, Chris, but I think very consistently about my own mortality, about the fact that, we're here for literally a blink of an eye, right? And then we're gone. And what legacy do we leave behind to future generations? Kind of similar to maybe what legacy Kirk's leaving behind to Picard and his crew. What is that legacy that they leave behind? And so I think through that, uh, because you just like for with kids, for example, once they're grown up, man, they're grown. I mean, this better than me. Your kids are older than mine. Once they're grown up, they're grown up. You don't get that time back. You don't get that time back when they're little. So, and maybe it's I don't know. Maybe I'm weird, but I think quite a lot about my own mortality. That like, yeah, I mean, I'm 40. I mean, if I only live to be 80, my life's half over. If I only live to be 60, I only got 20 years left. And then maybe that's a very grim view, but I think about that because I think, eh, how much time have I thrown away doing X, Y, and Z? Too much time playing video games. That's time I can't get back. And all I do is get angry.
Mm.
Um, so I don't know. Maybe I don't know if you track any of that makes sense. It's just something that I didn't think about back when I was younger watching Generations on VHS, but now that I'm older, I think so heavily about that and the idea of time and the fact that I'm more of my life may be behind me than ahead of me. We just don't know because every day is precious and we don't know, right?
Yeah, that's right. And the mortality being real and then being appreciative for like the times that we spend with each other and at the present, just like you and I are doing right now.
Yeah, and we may not be in together in person, but
Yeah,
by doing this podcast, we get to spend time together, even if it is just virtually.
yeah, absolutely. Picard's and Dr. Soren's viewpoint on time. So Dr. Soren going, time is like a predator. Picard is saying time is like a companion. They're both asserting um, kind of characteristics and being and time being alive to them. Right?
Yeah, it's a
And
character in this movie,
Mhm.
right?
It's a character. And so we see that theme um, in Voyager, where they have there's this beautiful phrase uh, that's spoken by Krychek about time. And he says, time breathes, past, present, and future. They're all the same, or they all exist as one. And when I think about Star Trek and the exploration of time, past, present, and future all existing as one, all good things, I think, explores that idea. Past,
Yeah.
present, and future are all as one. Everything is connected and explores that in a beautiful, beautiful way. Um, and as I have personally thought about time, I find myself exploring past, present, and future. Like you and I are both in martial arts, and so we study like forms and formats of martial arts that were created in the past, right? That we practice in the present, and then that we'll practice and modify and vary in the future. So I love that idea of like exploring that, because even myself, like exploring like what I did in the past and going in my mind and exploring and practicing that, and my body will remember it and my mind will remember it. And I'm doing this now in the present, but I've done it in the past. And what has been created in the past, I'm doing right now. And so I love like that connectedness. And then when we're teaching it to our children, right, then that carries on, because what we're teaching to our children in the present will carry on in the future.
Yeah.
So I love that idea of like exploration of time and how we're connected to it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great. And I think if diving a little bit deeper into this movie, because we love to do that. If you guys have watched or listened to us, we love to deep dive. That's what we have, deep dive episodes and spotlight series. Um, in this movie, you see Picard moved heavily by emotion due to the realization of that mortality, right? And there's even a moment that always gets me when I watch it where he's sitting in the conference room with Troy, right? And he's found out about his brother and nephew, and he mentions that the Picard family line dies with him, basically, right? He didn't have kids, enough family, and then
Mhm.
it ends. And then he thought that he was thinking, oh, the Picard family line will go on with through his nephew and so forth, and now it's not going to. And that idea of mortality that he faces, and the realization of time, it's a you know, I didn't mean to turn this from a rant into a let's love all over generations, because it's not. We are ranting about this movie, but I do think there are some great things about this. And if you look at what happens in All Good Things and then what happens in Generations, they're carrying on that idea of time, right? That idea of past, present, future, like you mentioned, which I thought was a great point.
Yeah. I that theme in Generations is a great theme if they're able to maybe concentrate on it more, because
Yeah.
if you're gonna bring this tragedy into Picard's life, okay, that's one thing. And you're gonna have a character like Dr. Soren who's experienced tragedy in his life. And there's a great actor, Malcolm McDowell, that can really pull on that. And then you can really I know they try to explore that relationship a little bit. They have that wonderful scene where Dr. Soren like he says time is like a fire, and that really affects Picard.
Yeah.
But they could have they could have explored it on a much more beneficial way. You know, Kirk is in the Nexus, and in the Nexus, you can go in the past, you can be in the present, you can go in the future, you can go anywhere in the Nexus. So Kirk's kind of experiencing that, and you have these three different viewpoints on time, and so they can get together and really have a poignant exploration of that. Not to make the movie too deep. I kind of understand why they have to do things like they do to bring in comedy like they do with Data. Um,
Yeah.
but man,
Generations feels a little bit like they didn't know 100% the direction they wanted to go. They're just like, oh, we're gonna throw Kirk in there. We're gonna throw in a death for Picard and Picard's family. We're gonna throw in this emotion ship with Data, and we're gonna, they're all these things they're trying to pack into a movie. Like maybe I mean, I guess they probably didn't know if they were gonna make another movie after this. Maybe they're like, oh, it's gonna be a one and done thing, and so
Mhm.
they just tried to pack as much into it as they could, as opposed to really honing down on the focus, the central theme, the core of the movie. And that's maybe kind of why it felt like the movie's really all over the place.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, indeed, it does.
Yeah, it does. So, Chris, some final thoughts from you on Star Trek Generations as a whole.
When I rewatched it, I was afraid that I was going to dislike it like even more. But at least when I rewatched it, I didn't find myself disliking it anymore. I found myself trying to pick out the positive things that I enjoyed about the movie, and some of that is the aesthetic of the movie that I really enjoyed
Yeah.
that, and then seeing some of these positive themes that they could have explored more, so that I thought that was good. Um, and I also found myself feeling that, yeah, Captain Kirk, his scenes were played great, and the scenes between him and Picard were played great. But of course, the core like sadness or dislike that I had for Generations still stayed. And so when I watched it, it just kind of reminded me, like, oh yeah, that's still there.
Yeah.
So I final thoughts is like, I'm really glad they followed it up with First Contact. Um, because that was the direction it really, really needed to go. You know,
Yeah.
Generations, if Generations did not exist as a movie, it wouldn't take anything away from the Star Trek franchise, and it might even elevate it a little more. Maybe.
Mm, interesting.
Yeah. How about you, my friend?
Well, so I hadn't watched Generations in a long time. It had been quite a while, actually. So when I rewatched it recently, I don't kind of like you. I don't know that my thoughts really changed a whole lot. I think things stood out to me in a very different way, kind of like we've mentioned before with the way episodes change over time to
Mhm.
us. Like, for example, The Inner Light
Yeah.
never affected me emotionally. Always an episode I was like, this is kind of boring. I'm going to skip over it. Didn't really watch it that much until I got older and I started having kids. And I watched them and went, oh my goodness, this hits differently. This feels different. This is my perspective's changed, right? Life experience, having kids, all of those things changes your perspective. With Generations, I still have my deep disdain for some of the things they did in that movie with killing Kirk, the way maybe not even maybe for me, Chris, it's not even so much the fact they kill Kirk. It's the way in which they kill him. He does not get the proper death that he should have gotten. Um, Generations, it's not the last Jedi of Star Trek.
Hmm.
It's not that bad. Um, but there are things I wish that I could erase out of that movie. One of which is the way in which they kill. If they're going to say no, you have to kill Kirk. You don't have a choice. Okay, fine, but I'm going to find a better way, much better
Yeah.
way to kill him. In fact, I would say saving the Enterprise B would be. I'd be okay with that. You're still saving the Enterprise. You're giving your life for the people on board the ship. To me, that's more heroic and a hero's death, I think, than just falling off a bridge trying to stop some crazy science guy from however you want to classify Dr. Sarn. Um, the thing we just mentioned, we just deep dive there for a little bit on time. When I watched this movie affected me differently
Hmm.
this go around than it has in the past. In the past, it's been an entertaining movie, but this hit me differently because of the thoughts I've had over the years of my own mortality. Not because I'm gonna harm myself or anything like that. It's just because as you get older, right, you start thinking like, hey, I've the road is it's getting I'm closer to the end than I am the beginning, right? So I start thinking about what legacy am I leaving behind for my kids? What kind of world am I leaving behind for my kids? How am I making the world better? How am I making my community better? Those types of things. Um, if I were not to wake up tomorrow morning, what would I leave behind for my kids? And I don't mean material things. I mean, what would they remember me by? How would they remember me? What would be that legacy? I start to begin to think of those things and that mortality because none of us are going to live forever. We're all going to die at some point, right? Um, and so by watching this, I think of that idea of time and the emotion Picard has losing family members was emotional to me because I think about, well, what would I feel like if that was the case, right? Um, So there are things about this movie that hit differently, things that I really enjoyed about this movie. The theme of time throughout it and the way in which they carry that over from TNG into the movie, I thought was wonderful. I think there's some very great parts to this movie and several things I wish I could edit out and completely erase from this movie. Like the
Sure.
Enterprise D being destroyed the way which it was destroyed, the complete absurdity of all of that. And oh, by the way, okay, one more rant
Yeah,
piece of me
yeah.
here. My final thought in TNG the series, how many times do we see Geordi in sickbay being given a thorough look over by Dr. Crusher? And every friggin' time she inspects his friggin' visor. Why the frick, when he is taken hostage, wouldn't she inspect the visor and find this thing that allows them to transmit and see him? How would that not be discovered? That should be an easy, oh, that's, we found this thing, they're trying to do it. And it wouldn't happen. The Enterprise D would never be destroyed. The Enterprise would wipe the floor with that bird of prey had it not been for some scheming thing that they did. That to me was not okay because his visor's checked all the time on TNG. Why would that have been overlooked in the movie? I know it's because of the plot and they had to make
Well, and
drama and
yeah, you're exactly right because Geordi knew that Soren had his visor.
yes. Shouldn't he tell somebody like, hey guys, you might want to look this over because just in case they, monkeyed with it.
Yeah,
That's
that's
just absurd to me. Okay. So I forgot I had to add that in the rant. That's
yeah.
just ridiculous. But overall, I don't hate the movie. I hate things about the movie, but as a whole, I don't hate the movie.
Mhm.
And this recent viewing didn't change that at all.
Yeah, it's good.
Actually, if anything, the recent viewing furthered my love for some of the things in the movie, the way in which they um address those things, the way in which they tackle some of those issues with time and mortality and
Hmm.
I really liked those. I thought they were really good.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
So it sometimes, guys and gals, those of you watching, listening everywhere, it's good to rant about things. It just is. And you know what? It's okay if you're a Star Trek fan or a Star Wars fan or a fan of any series or any part of any fandom, whether it's anything from Magic the Gathering to D&D to Star Trek, Star Wars, whatever. Pick your poison. Um, it's okay to not like things that are in that. You don't have to like everything just because it's that. Like I know there are some Star Trek fans who are like, well, if it's Star Trek, I'll like it. Like you don't have to. You can if you want to, but you don't have to be like, oh, well, because it has Star Wars slapped on it doesn't mean that you have to like it. I mean, we've talked about this before, Chris. We both love Star Wars, but that doesn't mean that we love everything that's been made Star Wars.
There's a lot we don't like from Star Wars. Where
uh,
where we refuse to acknowledge that it is even Star Wars.
that's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
it's okay.
It's like the newer Star Wars trilogy that Disney did. It's almost like the Great Value brand of Star Wars.
Yeah,
There's a label on it that looks kind of like a different label, but it's not really that label. It's called something different.
yeah, that's right.
Should we name it Wars in the Stars?
Well,
I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
But I don't know. Maybe that's kind of part of my rant, Chris. Like just because you like a franchise or you're part of a fandom of something doesn't mean you have to like everything. It's okay to not like certain things. Not everything's perfect. I'm sure there's D&D books out there that people are like, yeah, that's not that great of a book.
hmm yeah,
There's Doctor Who episodes that are like, that wasn't that great. Um, I mean, you name it, right? There are sets for the Magic cards that come out that aren't that great. It's just part of it. Nothing's perfect. So if you're a Star Trek fan, I'm not telling you what to do or like or not like, but you don't feel like you have to like everything that has the label of Star Trek on it. It's okay if there's things you dislike. And it's okay if there are things you like that other people dislike.
yeah.
I know there's people out there who love Discovery. It's their favorite Star Trek series. Great. That's cool.
I was thinking about Discovery.
Yeah. I don't like Discovery. I'm not a big fan of Discovery. I mean, there are things about it. I like characters like Saru and stuff I like, but it's not my favorite Star Trek series. That's okay. It's okay if you don't like it. It's fine. It is what it is. But with Generations, it's okay to like Generations and still have things about it you don't like. It's fine.
I would love to hear it if anyone, if Generations is anybody's favorite like TNG movie. It'd be kind of interesting.
There
If they
probably
have that.
has to be. I mean, with the amount of
Yeah.
people out there that are Trek fans, I'm sure there
Mhm.
are people it's their favorite movie.
Yeah.
I mean, because after First Contact, right? First Contact's amazing. I love it. Um, I mean, okay. If you're a Trek fan and Insurrection is your favorite Star Trek movie, that could be wrong.
Yeah.
No. I mean, Insurrection was a great idea. There's a lot of great concepts in there, but that should have been like episodes, not a movie.
Yeah.
That's like just a really long Star Trek episode.
Yeah. I could think about Generations from the perspective like uh maybe you didn't really know much about TOS or saw any of the TOS movies.
Could be. Yeah.
You just had like
Possible.
no knowledge, like really. You knew Kirk was like some guy. Or maybe you didn't even know
Some
Kirk.
guy.
Or maybe you didn't know Kirk. So you're coming in Generations and like Kirk's like a very, very minor thing to you.
Chris, I'm taking that soundbite
You
and
know?
making it into a reel. Maybe he didn't know who Kirk was. Maybe he's just some guy.
Yeah. That's right.
That was epic. I'm making it into a reel. That has to be.
Some
That was
guy.
perfect.
Yeah.
He's just some guy. I mean, it's true. There are plenty of Star Trek fans out there who are not really into TOS. That's okay. Nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. Like, just because you're a Star Trek fan doesn't mean you have to love TOS. It's okay if you're like, okay, it's cool, it's the original, but it's not my jam. That's fine. If TNG is like if it's TNG and that's it, cool. You're missing out on DS9 and Voyager and Enterprise and Strange New Worlds and Discovery and other shows, but that's okay. So we're ranting because there's things about Generations we don't like, and that's okay too. So, uh, if you have things about Generations that you always rant about, or things you can't stand, or things you love, please let us know in the comments below, or send us a message on our email account.
Threads. Or is that a thing? Can you send
Yeah, you
messages in
can.
threads?
Well, I
Yeah.
don't know if you can send it on threads, but you can leave a comment in our
Okay.
threads post about this episode. You can send us an email at the Random Redshirt Podcast at gmail.com. You can send us a message on Instagram, on Facebook, you name it. You can reach out to us and find that. And being that it's Christmas time, Chris,
Mm.
I think we should give away a podcast t-shirt.
It'd be wonderful.
How cool would
Yes.
that be? I think that'd be cool. So if you're watching or listening to us all over the globes and the interwebs, here's how you can enter.
Hmm.
If you're just listening to us, you got to go to our YouTube channel. Okay. Find the video version of this episode, or if you're watching on YouTube, you already know, and leave a comment below on this video and make sure you're a subscriber. Oh, that's all you got to do. Be a subscriber to the YouTube channel and leave a comment below on this video, and we will at random pick a winner, and you will get a podcast t-shirt mailed directly to you. But kind of fun. Why not? It's a season of giving, is it not?
Indeed.
Because hey, if you're listening and watching the Random Redshirt podcast and you don't have a random red shirt, you need a random red shirt, right?
That'd
Sounds
be
only
excellent.
fitting.
That'd be excellent. That would be excellent.
Could wear a red shirt just like Santa Claus.
Yep.
So, anyways, this is fun, Chris. This is a lot of fun talking about Generations. We actually, I mean, we ranted about quite a few things, but there were a lot more I felt like that we discussed that we really enjoyed. I thank you for deep diving on that piece of this movie with me
Yeah.
about time and everything. I think that was a great discussion.
Yeah, it was a wonderful discussion. So this will be great. I really look forward to our deep dives on the other Star Trek movies.
Yeah. I have a feeling Star Trek 6 is going to be one for the books because I know how much you love that. I love that movie too, but I know how much you really love that movie.
I really love it. And I love Star Trek 5. I just have to say that because I know you'll get a laugh at it.
This is going to cause a whole new rant. It has nothing to do with Generations, but yeah, I know you do. And you know what? Someday we'll deep dive Star Trek 5 and you can air out all the
Mm.
amazing things that you love about that movie, and then I will disagree with most of them. I mean, there are a few things. Like I told you, the campfire scene at the beginning of Star Trek Five is incredible with the
Yeah.
toast and the marshmallow. I mean, that's just the writing and the humor in that is unparalleled of any of the Star Trek movies. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll be fun.
It
I
will
look
be fun.
forward to doing that. Look forward to talking about the other Star Trek movies at some point too. Those will be a lot of fun because with movies like Nemesis is going to have a couple rants too. There's a few rants there in that movie. And Insurrection, wasn't a terrible movie, but it should have been an episode. So there's certainly a lot to discuss there.
There is.
Um, yeah, so a lot of future discussions on the Trek movies for sure. But anyways, so thank you as always, everybody. We very much appreciate you. Unless we get another episode in before the new year, this would be the last episode of 2024 for us. We'll see if we have the time to make that happen. If not, we want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, whichever you celebrate, or if you don't celebrate, we wish you blessings and peace, and hopefully you have time with family and friends. You can get together wherever you are in the world, even if you don't celebrate the holidays. Still a good excuse to get together with friends and family. And as we talked about discussing the movie generations, Chris, time waits for no one, and therefore, if you have the opportunity to do it, you should.
Absolutely, you should.
Yeah,
That was beautiful,
sure.
my friend. That was beautiful, Zach.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody. We very much appreciate it as always. Again, be sure to go to Facebook, Instagram, Threads, YouTube, your favorite podcast platform. You can find us all there and more. And we appreciate you listening to our rant. And we look forward to hearing your thoughts about generations and your rant of what things you may have liked or didn't like in the comments below on our YouTube channel to enter for that free Random Redshirt Podcast t-shirt. You'll love it. We appreciate it. And we'll catch you next time right here on the Random Redshirt Podcast.